Stem24, boys, is the first STEM in regards to the new focus question, which is how can psychology affect performance? And we are specifically looking at motivation. And you can see here it's categorised as being either positive or negative, and the next classification is either intrinsic or extrinsic. So, looking at positive motivation first off, and you can read through these points, but generally it's where the athlete gets some sort of pleasure out of completing a task. And you know, whether that pleasure is from inside or an external source is up to the athlete. But it's obviously, as the name suggests, it's where the athlete enjoys doing what they're doing because of what's going to happen as a result of them doing it. And you've got an example here of the cricketer scoring 100 runs when he's batting. You've got the champion Steve Waugh here, and you can see the crowd. You know, obviously that would be a positive. If he's batting to get that sort of feedback from the crowd, that would be a positive way of motivating himself. The flip side of that is negative motivation. And that's where the athlete completes tasks because with a fear of something bad happening if they don't complete the task successfully. You know, for example, we've got here been replaced due to making numerous errors or media articles ridiculing their performance. And we've got a couple of pictures here. This is for you, Dylan McEwen, of John Terry missing the penalty in the Champions League final. And here's the link to the article about that, just for you if you'd like to read all about it. You know, that would be negative motivation. If he was walking up to that penalty thinking, if I miss this, there's going to be media articles bagging me out, which there was. You know, there's 60, 70,000 people in the stadium. There's all the fans back home. If I miss this, then obviously people are going to talk negatively about me. That's a negative type motivation. And that's not a positive way. Sorry, not positive. It's not a good way of motivating yourself. And you see here, it's a very, very dangerous one. If an athlete is negatively motivated, then it can really dent their confidence, and it says here they might not achieve great heights again. It can be very distracting to the athlete. And you've got another example here. If a golfer frequently misses putts, which would normally win tournaments, then the media may start writing articles suggesting they cannot win a tournament, and the golfer may actually start to believe those articles until they actually do win a tournament. So that's positive and negative motivation. The next two categories, before we get into the next two categories, just this page is in reference to a coach and what he needs to consider with both positive and negative motivation. And as a coach, you need to know your players, need to know who responds to what sort of motivation. So if you've got a player that's particularly edgy, you wouldn't mention any negative side of if a performance was not to go the way you wanted. You would try and keep things on a positive level. But that's just a little reference to what coaches can do. Now, the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, as the name suggests, intrinsic comes from within the athlete. It's an internal desire to do well. So the intrinsic motivation is not necessarily, it's just simply to perform your best. For example, a swimmer. A swimmer may not be focused on winning the Olympic gold medal. A swimmer may be focused on simply performing his personal best. And if that athlete has performed their personal best, whilst they're probably deep down, would love to win the Olympic gold medal, if they've performed as well as they possibly can, then they will feel some sort of satisfaction. That's intrinsic motivation. And it's generally classified as a stronger form of motivation because it involves a personal desire to do pretty well, because it comes from within, and the intrinsically motivated athletes are those who generally will succeed. So you can see here just some characteristics. So the intrinsically motivated athletes actually sort of translates to those that want to train harder to improve themselves because they're intrinsically motivated. They're focused on what's going to get them better rather than what happens if they get to a good stage. And it's believed that it's had a longer lasting effect of motivating athletes as compared to extrinsic motivation. So looking here, extrinsic motivation obviously comes from external sources. So here we've got two Liverpool players holding the European Cup. If they were extrinsically motivated, then their motivation would be that trophy, holding that trophy and receiving the accolades from the fans. And Dylan, you'll notice that Chelsea have not won the European Cup at all. That's another pipe dream for you guys. So if they're performing primarily for the external reinforcement, such as rewards, food, fame or money, then that's generally an athlete who's extrinsically motivated. And it's believed that the extrinsic motivation, the athlete who is extrinsically motivated is not as likely to train as hard or work as hard on their game, because they're focused on what's going to happen if I win, rather than what it's going to take to get me to win. And just a couple more points here about the extrinsic motivation. Now, I've just got here just some suggestions on what you can do for various types of athletes, various personality types, what sort of motivational techniques can be used, so you can apply them to your various sports or a sport that you're quite familiar with. We've just got some motivation applied to golf with some specific examples here, and you can read through those. So that's the introduction to psychology by looking at motivation, which is both positive and negative, and intrinsic and extrinsic.